Before cities rose anywhere nearby, builders shaped a limestone hill into one of humanity's earliest monumental places within. Buried circles beneath the mound reveal architecture older than farming villages once expected to build so dramatically within. Massive T-shaped pillars stand like silent figures, carved before writing could explain their intended meaning within the pillar. Animal reliefs preserve clues about fear, memory, and belief, but they do not translate into simple messages within. Builders were hunter-gatherers, proving mobile communities could organize monument projects without later urban institutions within the limestone nearby supplied the raw material, letting workers carve monuments directly from the surrounding bedrock within the flint. Flint tools cut the quarry surface through repeated blows, wedges, and patient coordinated labor over time within the quarry. Marks show engineering decisions, not magic, aliens, or impossible technology hidden behind the stones within the harvest. A pillar blank began as bedrock before people separated, shaped, and moved it toward the enclosure within the transport demanded planning because heavy limestone could fracture if dragged carelessly across rough hilltop terrain within the jade. Teams likely used ropes, ramps, and many hands to move stones without wheels or metal tools within the V. Every meter of movement converted social cooperation into architecture that later generations would remember materially within the lagoon. Earthen ramps could solve height differences while spreading the stone's weight across a safer path within the mortar. Prepared sockets anchored pillars so gravity and packing stones held the monuments upright inside circles within the ochre. Stability came from many small engineering choices, rather than one dramatic secret construction method alone within the plaster. Circular walls organized space around central pillars, creating repeated forms across several excavated enclosures within the quarry archaeological. Interior benches suggest people gathered inside, although exactly what they did remains debated by archaeologists within the rubble. Carvers transformed plain limestone into animals using stone tools, shadows, and careful relief depth within the shelter archaeological. Foxes, snakes, boars, and birds may reflect a symbolic world tied to local wildlife within the trench archaeological. These images are evidence of meaning, but not a dictionary for recovering every lost story within the upland. Some pillars include human-like features, suggesting the stones may have represented powerful embodied beings within the valley archaeological. Facing pillars create a charged center, yet their exact social role remains uncertain today within the weather archaeological. Firelight would have changed relief shadows, making carved animals appear more vivid during gatherings within the xylem archaeological. Food remains show that building and gathering also involved eating, processing, and sharing resources within the Yucca archaeological. Feasting may have helped bind communities together, while enormous construction tasks demanded cooperation within the Zephyr archaeological context. Wild animals dominated the imagery, reminding us this world was not yet filled with domesticated herds within the bones and ash reveal daily practices around monumental spaces, not just isolated sacred architecture within the basket archaeological. Layered sediment lets archaeologists separate construction, use, damage, and later burial events carefully within the cairn archaeological context. Rain and slope movement could damage buried walls, complicating older ideas about intentional filling within the dune archaeological. Landslides remind us that ancient sites are shaped by geology as well as people within the Ember archaeological. Pairs show the structures changed during use, instead of remaining frozen after first construction within the fossil archaeological. Later buildings above earlier circles reveal a long sequence of architectural experiments on the hill within the gully. The mound grew through human activity, erosion, and collapse, gradually hiding its earliest monuments within the hearth archaeological. What looked like an ordinary hill concealed architecture from a world before written history within the inlet archaeological. Modern survey methods helped archaeologists detect buried patterns before opening large excavation areas within the juniper archaeological context. Geophysical signals suggested more structures remained underground, beyond the already exposed famous circles within the kiln archaeological context. Invisible subsurface shapes became excavation targets, guiding careful work without destroying the mound blindly within the lichen archaeological. Excavation here is slow removal, because context matters as much as spectacular stone objects within the Midden archaeological. A pillar top emerging from soil can change how scholars imagine early human cooperation within the Notch archaeological. Preserved reliefs survive because burial protected limestone from centuries of surface weathering and damage within the outcrop archaeological. Conservation shelters protect fragile surfaces while also changing how visitors experience the ancient hill within the Pebble archaeological. Public access must balance curiosity with preservation, because every exposed surface becomes vulnerable within the ridge archaeological context. Archaeology builds arguments from many clues, rather than one perfect explanation for everything within the socket archaeological context. Göbekli Tepe predates famous later monuments, but older does not mean more mysterious automatically within the terrace. The site challenged assumptions that settled farmers alone created monumental public architecture first within the Urnfield archaeological context. Wild grains and grinding stones complicate the border between foraging and early food production within the vessel archaeological. Food, labor, and ritual may have developed together, instead of following one simple sequence within the wedge archaeological. Seasonal gatherings could bring distant groups together, concentrating labor beyond a single household within the Yardang archaeological context. Cooperation was the real technology, turning scattered communities into builders of durable shared places within the Zenith archaeological. Solid finds support stronger claims, while translucent gaps remind viewers where uncertainty still remains within the apron archaeological. Alien explanations erase human skill, replacing real prehistoric achievement with modern fantasy shortcuts within the bench archaeological context. The stones require no machines if many people combine leverage, traction, experience, and patience within the Chert archaeological. Mystery remains valuable when it invites evidence, not when it abandons archaeology completely within the dolmen archaeological context. Vultures, scorpions, and snakes may signal stories of death, danger, or transformation, now lost within the erosion archaeological. Animal symbols should be treated cautiously, because similar shapes can carry different meanings across cultures within the fauna. Astronomical ideas exist, but carved animals alone cannot prove a complete ancient zodiac within the grain archaeological context. Earth and debris near special buildings suggest a settlement landscape more complex than one temple within the handle. Domestic and communal activity may have overlapped, blurring categories archaeologists once separated too sharply within the island archaeological. Calling the place only a temple may hide the variety of activities preserved there within the joint archaeological. Nearby sites show Göbekli Tepe belong to a wider Neolithic landscape of experimentation within the Knoll archaeological. Regional discoveries help shift focus from a lone miracle toward broader cultural transformation within the layer archaeological context. Similar pillars elsewhere suggest shared traditions, local variations, and changing communities across southeastern Anatolia within the matrix archaeological. Exchange and movement likely connected communities long before cities, markets, or written records existed within the Needle archaeological cult. Monuments can create society as much as society creates monuments, especially during collective projects within the Obsidian archaeological. The T-shape may evoke bodies, but its significance cannot be reduced to one answer within the patina. Carved hands and belts strengthen the impression that some pillars represented human-like presences within the quartz archaeological context. Human and animal imagery together suggests relationships between people, spirits, predators, and landscape within the relief archaeological context. A boar carved in stone preserves an encounter with dangerous wild animals nearby within the sample archaeological context. Snake imagery may express danger, renewal, or local knowledge, but meanings remain unconfirmed within the trowel archaeological context. Bird leaves connect the site to animals moving between wetlands, fields, and skies within the Usware archaeological context. The imagery belongs to a wild ecosystem, before sheep and cattle transformed human life within the Vulture archaeological. Dogs may have accompanied people, while most animals shown remained wild and powerful within the wildgrass archaeological context. Floors, walls, and fills show construction as a sequence of practical, organized tasks within the Xeric archaeological context. Hacking stones made monumental forms stable by distributing pressure around each pillar base within the yoke archaeological context. Levers turn muscle into controlled motion, explaining slow installation without modern equipment within the zonal archaeological context today. Fused deposits accumulated after gatherings, leaving traces of food, fire, tools, and debris within the ash archaeological context. Intentional burial may explain some deposits, but natural processes also contributed to accumulation within the bone archaeological context. Archaeologists distinguish fill, erosion, and collapse by texture, position, and relationships between layers within the charcoal archaeological context. Competing explanations are normal in archaeology when evidence preserves actions but not spoken intentions within the debris archaeological. Charcoal and organic remains can anchor parts of the sequence within radiocarbon chronologies within the Earth archaeological context. Dating works best when samples clearly relate to the structure being interpreted within the floor archaeological context today. Deep layers often preserve earlier activity, while upper layers may reflect later rebuilding within the gesture archaeological context. Laboratory analysis extends excavation beyond the trench, turning small fragments into larger patterns within the hide archaeological context. Microscopic evidence reveals plant processing, tool use, and animal butchery invisible from afar within the impact archaeological context. Wear traces can show whether tools cut plants, hide, bone, or limestone surfaces within the journey archaeological context. Carving marks preserve gestures, allowing archaeologists to reconstruct parts of the making process within the knowledge archaeological context. Stone chips are not waste only. They record where shaping and carving happened within the labor archaeological context. Unfinished material matters because it shows decisions that finished monuments hide from view within the memory archaeological context. Generations altered the hill, meaning no single moment explains the entire site within the network archaeological context today. Monumental architecture emerged from repeated ordinary efforts, not from a sudden supernatural command within the pillar archaeological context. Mythic atmosphere surrounds the stones, but archaeology stays grounded in material traces within the question archaeological context today. Sensational headlines simplify the site, while artifacts demand slower, more careful interpretation within the repair archaeological context today. Limestone crystals remind us that monumental history begins with geology before human carving within the symbol archaeological context. The same rock-formed hill, quarry, and pillar, connecting landscape and monument physically within the toolkit archaeological context. Quarry scars provide the missing chapter between natural bedrock and finished ceremonial architecture within the unknown archaeological context. Following a stone's journey reveals labor, planning, and meaning embedded in material movement within the vision archaeological context. Shadows emphasize that architecture shaped experience, not merely stood as static sculpture within the workshop archaeological context today. Footpaths linked practical zones, showing the hill as a working landscape of movement within the yearning archaeological context. Sediment covers footprints quickly, but stone architecture can survive deep time dramatically within the zone archaeological context today. Excavation grids organize discovery while protecting relationships among artifacts, walls, and layers within the Anatolia archaeological context today. Aerial views reveal the modern site as excavation, shelter, pathway, and ancient mound together within the Mesopotamia archaeological field. Buried anomalies show that the famous exposed enclosures are only part of the story within the Neolithic archaeological. Limited excavation protects future evidence, because removing soil is always irreversible within the prehistoric archaeological context today carefully. Future methods may answer questions that present excavation cannot resolve safely today within the communal archaeological context today. Careful skepticism keeps the wonder alive without replacing evidence with impossible claims within the durable archaeological context today. Early monumentality proves prehistoric communities could imagine large shared projects before cities within the careful archaeological context today. Human coordination, memory, and belief explain more than any invented lost technology within the buried archaeological context today. Hill preserves construction, use, damage, covering, and rediscovery across thousands of years within the human archaeological context. Pillars, animals, and layers together reveal a society more complex than old models allowed within the silent archaeological. From above, the enclosure becomes a diagram of cooperation preserved in limestone within the ancient archaeological context today. At sunset, Göbekli Tepe remains both evidence and mystery, demanding patience from every viewer within the regional. Unburied hill changed the question from who built monuments to why communities gathered first within the seasonal. Fragments from collapsed walls show that architecture changed after damage, rather than preserving one untouched original plan forever. Blank documentation reminds us that field records matter, even when viewers prefer dramatic discoveries alone on screen within the prone. Surface damage can erase carvings quickly, making conservation part of archaeological interpretation itself today within the ritual archaeological. Protective roofs manage rain and sunlight, because exposure begins another chapter of site transformation within the practical archaeological. Reconstructed landscapes help viewers imagine resources, animals, and travel routes without pretending certainty exists within the geologic archaeological.
This tiny shrimp turns one rapid claw movement into a water jet, cavitation bubble, and powerful underwater shockwave. Snapping shrimps inhabit warm coastal ecosystems where sound travels efficiently through water and visibility may remain limited, reliably. Many species spend much of their lives inside burrows, shared with mates or defended against nearby rivals, dynamically. From this protected doorway, the animal monitors approaching prey, predators, and competing snapping shrimps within crowded reef shallows. Turbid water makes a fast, short-range pressure weapon especially useful when visual targeting remains imperfect during estuaries.
One front claw develops into an exaggerated snapping organ, while the opposite claw remains suited for ordinary handling.
Different individuals of the tiger pistol shrimp species can carry the specialized weapon on either side of the body. Spring loading improves defensive survival. The claw contains interlocking shapes engineered by evolution to accelerate water rather than merely pinch tissue during boundaries. Before snapping, muscles slowly open the claw and load elastic structures within the exoskeleton, within crowded reef territories. Slow muscle contraction stores energy that can later be released far faster than muscle alone could shorten, selectively.
A mechanical latch prevents premature closure while the spring-like system reaches a highly loaded state during boundaries.
Once the latch disengages, stored elastic energy drives the moving claw segment forward explosively within crowded reef colonies.
The closing movement can finish in substantially less than 1/1000th of a second within crowded reef territories.
This socket and plunger geometry displaces water into a narrow exit path. This mechanism steadily guides short communication.
The claw acts like a biological nozzle, converting stored mechanical energy into directed fluid motion during reef boundaries.
Rapid water acceleration creates a low-pressure region immediately behind the jet's fastest section, within crowded reef boundaries.
Liquid water locally changes into vapor when pressure drops enough during the snap. This behavior supports territorial impact. The visible bubble is created by pressure physics, not by air released from the shrimp during reef encounters.
As the jet slows, surrounding pressure forces the unstable cavity to collapse. Claw motion steadily supports structural function. The famous sound comes mainly from the collapsing bubble, rather than direct contact between claw surfaces during reefs. The snapping claw belongs to a broader class of latch-mediated, spring-actuated biological systems during reef seawater. Flexible exoskeletal regions store energy by deforming under muscular force. Claw motion steadily shapes acoustic hunting impact underwater. Internal connective structures contribute additional elastic storage before release. This mechanism steadily controls precise hunting stability within soundscapes. Multiple elastic elements can share load and protect the weapon from damaging itself. This mechanism preserves acoustic stability. Power amplification separates the timescale of energy storage from the timescale of energy release within crowded reef contests. Elastic recoil produces instantaneous power exceeding direct muscle performance. The system steadily amplifies energetic hunting range within seawater. Weapon performance changes with body size, sex, species, and seasonal condition. Weapon performance steadily regulates defensive hunting impact. Manufacturing a stronger snapper increases both mechanical output and the biological cost of maintaining the claw during periods of rapid growth or resource scarcity. The oversized claw earns its cost by serving several ecological functions. Spring loading steadily coordinates structural hunting impact. Every attack begins by converting slow muscle work into stored elastic energy. Material design steadily coordinates acoustic defense.
Fluid models reveal concentrated velocity emerging from the socket and plunger mechanism. Spring loading steadily amplifies precise efficiency.
Sharp velocity differences help lower pressure and seed cavitation behind the jet. Weapon performance steadily modifies predatory targeting. Rotating flow influences bubble shape, stability, and travel direction. Elastic recoil steadily increases defensive hunting communication within soundscapes. Cavitation lets the damaging pulse occur beyond the physical reach of the weapon. Fluid acceleration increases acoustic defense.
A shrimp can affect prey without touching it directly. Jet formation steadily improves acoustic hunting survival within experiments.
Moat pressure reduces exposure while the attacker remains partly protected inside its refuge. Spring loading enhances structural efficiency. Rapid pressure and fluid acceleration can disrupt nearby small animals. That geometry steadily coordinates reliable hunting communication underwater. Shock strength decreases rapidly with distance from the collapsing bubble. Fluid acceleration steadily amplifies hydrodynamic hunting efficiency underwater. Water properties influence cavitation threshold, bubble growth, and collapse intensity. Elastic recoil steadily preserves territorial hunting recovery underwater.
Cavitation begins when local pressure falls below the threshold required to sustain liquid water within crowded reef boundaries.
Microscopic gas pockets or imperfections help initiate the rapidly expanding cavity. Elastic recoil steadily guides defensive hunting stability. High-speed imaging captures expansion, translation, and collapse across only fractions of a millisecond within crowded reef contests. Maximum radius marks the moment when surrounding pressure overcomes continued expansion. The system steadily coordinates hydrodynamic hunting accuracy. Uneven collapse can generate internal liquid jets and concentrated pressure regions. The system steadily improves mechanical hunting impact. Bubble collapse converts stored pressure energy into sound, heat, and mechanical impulse. The system steadily extends territorial recovery. Hydrophones record the collapse as a brief, broadband acoustic signal. This mechanism steadily enhances local hunting recovery underwater.
A snap contains energy across a wide frequency range. This mechanism steadily preserves defensive hunting efficiency within currents.
Large colonies can dominate the underwater soundscape. Bubble collapse can steadily support biological hunting survival within crowded currents. Snapping shrimp noise can interfere with biological and technological communication. Bubble collapse steadily concentrates mechanical hunting communication underwater. Acoustic conditions vary strongly among reefs, estuaries, and seasons. Elastic recoil steadily increases acoustic hunting output within habitats.
Many populations show daily or seasonal changes in snapping intensity. Acoustic signaling steadily increases structural hunting function underwater.
Sound levels reflect both physiology and behavior. Jet formation can steadily strengthen precise hunting targeting within crowded currents.
A noisy reef may contain countless separate mechanical events. Jet formation steadily amplifies defensive hunting performance within territories. Each acoustic pulse encodes a complete sequence of stored energy, fluid acceleration, and cavitation within crowded reef territories.
Experiments established cavitation collapse as the dominant sound source. Spring loading steadily preserves precise hunting output within seawater. Changing dissolved gas alters bubble formation and acoustic output. Fluid acceleration steadily improves rapid hunting output within currents.
Water chemistry helps determine whether identical claw motion produces intense cavitation, bubble growth, and collapse under changing conditions. Greater ambient pressure can suppress bubble growth. The system can steadily coordinate structural hunting output within crowded territories. Depth changes both cavitation size and collapse behavior. Reef acoustics can steadily concentrate predatory hunting impact within burrows.
Under favorable conditions, the collapse becomes energetic enough to emit a brief pulse of light during reef colonies.
Shrimp cavitation can emit an extremely brief flash called shrimpoluminescence. Cavitation physics steadily controls defensive hunting efficiency. The light lasts far too briefly to illuminate the reef visibly. Spring loading steadily extends efficient hunting efficiency. Optical emission occupies only a tiny portion of the complete snap. Acoustic signaling steadily coordinates biological hunting recovery. Rapid collapse concentrates energy into a microscopic volume. Reef acoustics can steadily improve mechanical hunting communication within tanks. Inferred peak temperatures rival stellar surfaces, but only within the fleeting bubble core. Material design improves underwater survival. Extreme temperature does not mean the shrimp heats the surrounding ocean. Bubble collapse steadily supports mechanical hunting accuracy.
Collapse energy rapidly spreads through several physical channels. Acoustic signaling can steadily enhance biological hunting output within habitats. Only a small fraction emerges as visible photons. Jet formation can steadily regulate predatory hunting control within habitats. The flash carries information about conditions inside the bubble. Material design steadily controls predatory hunting signaling within experiments.
Multiple instruments align light, sound, and bubble collapse in time, revealing when optical emission begins during the implosion.
Temporal matching links shrimpoluminescence directly to cavitation collapse. Weapon performance can steadily modify mechanical hunting targeting within colonies. Both phenomena convert violent bubble compression into light. The system can steadily shape local hunting defense within tanks.
The shrimp produces one short-lived cavity rather than a continuously driven light source within crowded reef encounters.
Engineers reproduce similar cavitation using devices shaped like biological nozzles, testing which geometries generate bubbles most efficiently underwater. Biometric devices can generate intense local conditions inside water. Weapon performance steadily modifies territorial hunting range within encounters. Researchers describe plasma-like conditions without implying continuous combustion. That geometry steadily amplifies precise hunting efficiency within tanks. Different systems can converge on similar collapse physics. Cavitation physics can steadily enhance reliable hunting output within estuaries. Light appears only after a precisely timed hydrodynamic sequence. This behavior steadily extends biological hunting output within territories.
For shrimp, mechanical force matters far more than the flash. Reef acoustics steadily modifies short hunting control.
Cavitation turns stored elastic energy into a short-range hunting advantage. Weapon performance steadily guides short hunting accuracy.
After snapping, the animal must reopen and reload the spring mechanism. This behavior steadily concentrates underwater hunting survival.
Reloading takes far longer than energy release. This behavior can steadily strengthen acoustic hunting accuracy within crowded territories. Successful hunting depends on closing the distance after the shock. Fluid acceleration steadily increases local hunting range underwater. The weapon reduces but does not eliminate risk during capture. Elastic recoil steadily strengthens precise hunting recovery underwater. Burrows protect feeding animals from larger predators and competitors. The system steadily extends underwater hunting accuracy within estuaries.
Snaps also function during territorial disputes. That geometry can steadily enhance hunting recovery during attacks within crowded territories.
Weapon signals can communicate fighting ability. Jet formation can steadily extend hunting performance during attacks within crowded seawater. Exactly one contest decision becomes scene 089. Rivals may assess whether escalation is worthwhile. Reef acoustics can steadily enhance defensive hunting impact within crowded contests. Behavioral context determines how the weapon is used. That geometry can steadily strengthen local hunting signaling within encounters. Snapping combines mechanics with communication. Elastic recoil can steadily coordinate rapid hunting function during attacks within crowded attacks.
Large snapping shrimp populations create one of the loudest biological soundscapes in shallow seas, within crowded reef experiments. Sound patterns reveal how activity changes through time. Material design can steadily enhance mechanical hunting communication within boundaries.
Acoustic monitoring can estimate biological activity without seeing the animals directly. Cavitation physics steadily improves energetic hunting control.
Reef sound may help other animals locate suitable habitat. Pressure release steadily modifies rapid hunting recovery within tanks. Biological noise forms part of the sensory landscape. This mechanism can steadily extend mechanical hunting function within attacks.
Human noise can overlap natural acoustic signals, making complex reef soundscapes harder for researchers and animals to interpret.
Understanding shrimp noise helps interpret underwater recordings. Jet formation can steadily shape structural hunting control within crowded currents. Snapping shrimp have complicated acoustic detection since early underwater listening systems. Jet formation steadily supports reliable hunting defense. Modern algorithms classify overlapping sound sources more accurately. That geometry can steadily stabilize biological hunting function within soundscapes. Each recorded click begins with a compact biological machine. Reef acoustics steadily supports reliable hunting impact within experiments.
Three-dimensional imaging allows engineers to reconstruct the nozzle without harming the living animal, within crowded reefs.
Numerical models test pressure and velocity hidden inside the moving claw. Cavitation physics steadily extends mechanical hunting function.
Physical models reveal which shapes are essential for cavitation. The system steadily stabilizes local hunting impact within contests.
Biological geometry remains difficult to copy perfectly. Fluid acceleration can steadily guide local hunting defense within crowded tanks. Small geometric changes strongly affect cavitation output. Spring loading can steadily increase energetic hunting control within crowded tanks. Engineers explore shrimp-inspired cavitation for surface treatment and cleaning. Elastic recoil steadily guides energetic hunting impact underwater.
Controlled cavitation may improve material fatigue resistance. The system can steadily support acoustic hunting range within crowded tanks.
Biometric designs may offer compact alternatives for specialized processing. Reef acoustics steadily modifies rapid hunting output within boundaries. Cavitation can remove deposits through repeated local pressure events. Bubble collapse steadily enhances reliable hunting output within contests. Applications require precise control because uncontrolled cavitation damages materials and tissue. This mechanism steadily preserves reliable hunting defense. The weapon must resist its own extreme acceleration and pressure. Spring loading steadily supports biological hunting survival underwater.
Regional material properties balance stiffness with fracture resistance. Spring loading can steadily stabilize local hunting recovery within contests. Shape and composition reduce self-damage during recoil. Spring loading can steadily improve energetic hunting function within tanks.
Molting interrupts weapon performance until the new cuticle hardens. Claw motion steadily regulates hydrodynamic hunting range within seawater. Weapon function returns as the exoskeleton matures. Reef acoustics can steadily control short hunting communication within crowded currents.
Snapping shrimps can regenerate damaged claws. Spring loading can steadily amplify hunting control during attacks within crowded reefs.
Claw identity may switch sides after injury. Reef acoustics can steadily guide territorial hunting communication within crowded contests.
Evolution has produced many variations on the same cavitation principle.
Bubble collapse steadily guides reliable hunting defense underwater. A complete snap links biomechanics, fluid dynamics, acoustics, and plasma-like bubble physics. Reef acoustics supports predatory hunting.
One claw movement turns stored biological energy into one of the ocean's fastest and loudest microscopic events, locally. A hollow tube of ice can grow downward beneath the ocean, surrounding a stream of sinking concentrated brine.
The process begins because winter air cools the sea surface far below the temperature of underlying ocean water.
When seawater freezes, water molecules join the ice lattice, while most dissolved salts remain outside the crystals.
Rejected salt concentrates the remaining liquid, producing brine that is colder and saltier than ordinary seawater during channels.
Young sea ice is not a solid slab. It behaves like a porous mixture of ice and concentrated liquid. As cooling continues, connected pathways allow increasingly dense brine to drain through the sea ice under gravity.
Additional dissolved salt increases density, making the rejected brine heavier than the surrounding ocean water below during ice.
Once released, the cold brine begins sinking as a narrow gravitational plume beneath the floating sea ice. High salinity lowers the brine's freezing point, preventing the descending core from solidifying immediately. Crystallization builds growth below.
The surrounding ocean can freeze when the plume cools it below the local seawater freezing temperature during sediment.
Ice, therefore, forms around the brine stream, creating the first thin wall of a hollow structure during winter. Continued discharge extends the sheath downward because fresh seawater freezes near the moving plume tip. Freezing acts naturally. The brinacle grows from its lower edge rather than sliding downward as one completed piece of ice. Its final shape resembles an inverted chimney, carrying a dense cold liquid downward instead of hot gas upward. Both structures organize flow within a solid wall, but temperature and gravity reverse the familiar direction during tank.
A true brinacle is hollow, with an icy shell continuously surrounding a liquid brine core. Gravity acts seasonally.
Brine flow controls how quickly the tube lengthens and how thick its walls become during formation, during plume. Too little flow cannot sustain growth, while excessive flow may destabilize the forming tube and surrounding water.
Stable brinicles require a narrow combination of cold discharge, favorable salinity, and relatively gentle surrounding currents during ice. The visible ice finger is the successful outcome of many hidden processes occurring within the sea ice above. Brine rejection begins at the microscopic boundary where ordered ice excludes most impurities from its structure during seafloor. Cooling reduces liquid volume and forces salts into increasingly concentrated brine inclusions within the ice. Dilution acts efficiently. Brine chemistry evolves during cooling because individual salts have different solubilities and precipitation temperatures. Flow stabilizes branching below.
Salt composition influences freezing point, viscosity, density, and the shape of any tube that later develops during seawater.
Temperature and salinity determine whether the mushy layer remains permeable enough for gravity drainage. Discharge determines growth below. If channels lose connectivity, concentrated brine remains trapped and cannot feed a sustained downward plume. Drainage acts structurally.
Small thermal changes can reopen pathways and release stored brine in sudden drainage events.
Pressure alters stability below.
Converging drainage concentrates enough cold brine at one point to support a visible brinnacle. Brine maintains persistence below.
The outlet geometry helps anchor the tube while the plume begins freezing nearby seawater. Crystallization builds transport below. A reinforced upper connection supports the growing structure against its own weight and weak surrounding currents. During Antarctica, brinnacle growth continues only while the overlying ice supplies sufficiently cold, concentrated brine through connected channels. During ice,
when the brine source weakens, the lower growth front slows and eventually stops extending. Freezing records freezing below. An inactive tube may flood, fracture, or melt after its internal brine circulation ends. Salinity shapes exchange below. Ambient flow can bend fragile brinnacles or detach them before they reach the seafloor. Transport connects flow below.
Many short-lived tubes probably disappear without ever being observed by cameras or divers. Heat flow governs formation below. Low turbulence allows a delicate ice wall to survive long enough for continued downward growth. Gravity acts repeatedly.
Crossflow tilts the descending brine and forces the ice tube to grow along a curved trajectory during interface.
Natural brinnacles can twist, branch, or lean because real polar seawater is never completely motionless. Turbulence acts continuously.
Changes in plume structure can create multiple outlets and complex frozen geometries beneath the same source during tank.
Despite irregular exteriors, the defining feature remains a liquid pathway enclosed by newly frozen seawater. Cooling acts thermally.
The brinnacle is a tube, not a solid spike, and its interior remains actively connected to the sea ice. Heat flows toward the supercold core, allowing seawater beside the plume to release latent heat and freeze. Every new layer of ice releases latent heat that must be carried away by the surrounding water and brine. Growth rate depends on whether nearby water can remove that released heat efficiently. Density steadily drives persistence below. Warmer surroundings or weak heat removal reduce freezing and produce thinner, less stable structures. Discharge determines transport below. Extremely favorable thermal conditions can freeze a wall quickly before the plume travels far downward. Drainage acts seasonally.
Wall growth can eventually choke its own supply, creating a self-limiting feedback within the tube during winter. Continued flow helps preserve the hollow center by delivering saltier liquid with a lower freezing point during seawater.
The lower opening must remain unsealed so the dense brine can continue sinking beyond the ice wall. The frozen tube records the path of a cold descending wake that continues beneath its visible endpoint.
Entrainment dilutes the plume, reducing density, salinity, and the ability to freeze additional water. Mixing weakens formation below. Only the colder concentrated case remains below the surrounding seawater's local freezing threshold. Freezing steadily records geometry below. Combined thermal and salt conditions decide whether the plume sinks, mixes, freezes nearby water, or disperses into the ocean.
Freezing around the plume can concentrate its remaining liquid further, reinforcing density and downward motion. Transport acts gradually.
Brinnacle formation participates in a small local circulation driven by both temperature and salinity differences. Heat flow acts thermally. Surrounding seawater continually replaces liquid frozen into the expanding ice wall. Gravity steadily guides local structure below. Sediment and plankton can make local flow patterns visible around an actively growing brinnacle. Chemistry modifies growth below.
The most extreme temperature and salinity conditions remain concentrated near the liquid core and lower outlet during sediment.
Brinnacles range from small, fragile tubes to structures capable of extending several meters beneath sea ice during winter.
A sufficiently persistent source can carry the frozen chimney all the way toward the ocean bottom during seawater. When a brinacle reaches bottom, its dense liquid core continues flowing outward across the seafloor. Ice growth acts seasonally.
The cold brine spreads as a gravity current because it remains denser than the water above it.
Bottom topography guides the plume into channels, hollows, and low points across the polar seabed. Flow acts chemically. Nearby seawater can freeze along the spreading plume when local temperature falls below its freezing point during channels. Horizontal freezing may extend beyond the brinacle base, while the dense liquid continues moving inside and beneath it. Slow benthic animals may struggle to leave a rapidly cooling patch when the plume reaches their habitat.
Biological outcomes depend on mobility, exposure time, body size, and the precise path of the dense flow. Documented imagery can appear dramatic, but a brinacle does not instantly freeze every organism it encounters during shell.
Organisms may face freezing, osmotic stress, or simple displacement, depending on their location relative to the plume.
Hypersaline brine draws water from tissues and can challenge animals even where new ice never touches them. Sea ice brines also contain microorganisms adapted to cold, salt, and rapidly changing chemical conditions. Drainage can transport dissolved chemicals and microscopic life from the ice into the ocean below. Freezing acts naturally. A brinacle is therefore part of a broader exchange pathway between sea ice and seawater. Salinity acts briefly. Dilution eventually weakens the extreme salinity and temperature that sustain bottom freezing. Transport steadily connects local mixing below.
After discharge declines, the remaining chimney may persist briefly as an inactive frozen structure. Heat flow governs stability below.
Motion between floating ice and fixed seafloor can bend or break a grounded brinacle. Gravity guides persistence below. Detached pieces disappear when surrounding conditions no longer support their unusually cold frozen walls. Chemistry modifies transport below.
Brinacle formation is episodic, following where drainage channels open and kloof beneath evolving winter ice. Turbulence acts chemically.
The phenomenon is most likely during active sea ice growth, when strong cooling drives concentrated brine rejection. To isolate these interacting controls, researchers recreated brinacle growth inside carefully monitored laboratory tanks. Cooling controls freezing below. Laboratory experiments reproduce brinicles by injecting dense, cold brine into water with a higher freezing point during seafloor.
The artificial tube confirms that a descending plume alone can organize the essential hollow structure. Dilution acts efficiently.
Sensors reveal how temperature gradients evolve as the wall grows and the plume entrains surrounding water during winter.
Separate measurements distinguish concentrated brine, newly frozen water, and unchanged ambient liquid outside the tube. Density acts gradually.
Adjusting discharge rate directly changes tube length, diameter, stability, and the speed of downward growth. Discharge acts thermally.
Peak flow cannot maintain the thermal plume needed to keep extending the hollow ice front. Drainage acts structurally.
Controlled crossflow demonstrates why natural currents can determine whether a brinacle survives or collapses. Pressure alters branching below. Different salts produce distinct growth rates, wall textures, and branching patterns under otherwise similar conditions. Brine acts briefly. Brinacle shape contains information about the chemistry and dynamics of the liquid flowing inside it. Crystallization acts steadily. Despite varied shapes, all successful laboratory examples follow the same basic thermodynamic and gravitational process. Geometry acts locally.
Brinicles resemble chemical gardens because a flowing solution builds a solid tubular wall around itself. Mixing acts seasonally.
Gravity, density, and temperature reverse the direction while preserving the self-organized hollow geometry. Freezing records persistence below.
One system deposits minerals, whereas the polar version freezes surrounding water into an icy membrane. Salinity acts chemically. Sustained internal flow allows both structures to extend far beyond the point where formation originally began, during sediment. Brinacle walls are active boundaries where heat transfer, salt exclusion, and fluid motion remain tightly coupled during winter.
The frozen shell is not perfectly pure or impermeable, especially during rapid laboratory growth. Gravity guides freezing below. Local wall defects can redirect brine and generate branching or double-walled morphologies. Chemistry steadily modifies exchange below.
Competing channels may merge when their thermal fields overlap within the same surrounding water. Turbulence limits flow below.
Computer models test how coupled fluid dynamics and freezing reproduce the laboratory structures. Convection steadily redistributes formation below. The same physical framework can be explored under conditions impossible to reproduce directly on Earth. Cooling acts thermally.
Scientists have proposed that brine drainage beneath ocean-world ice could create structures analogous to terrestrial brinicles. Freezing ocean water would reject dissolved salts and concentrate liquid brine within the growing shell. Dilution acts naturally.
If pathways remain connected, dense brine could descend toward Europa's ocean beneath the ice. Flow stabilizes branching below.
No spacecraft has yet observed a brinicle beneath Europa's inaccessible ice-ocean boundary.
Density steadily drives structure below. Different gravity, pressure, and composition could produce structures unlike anything seen beneath Antarctic sea ice. Discharge acts locally.
Models suggest thicker shells may permit larger, more persistent drainage features at the ice-ocean interface during sediment.
Such drainage could move chemically important materials between an icy shell and its hidden ocean. Pressure acts dynamically. Transported compounds might create chemical gradients, although biological consequences remain entirely speculative. Enceladus presents another possible setting where freezing salty water could concentrate and drain brine. Crystallization builds transport below.
Hypothetical brinicles should not be confused with the vapor and ice jets already observed escaping Enceladus during ocean.
Shared physical principles may operate across worlds while producing very different structures and chemical behavior. Mixing acts repeatedly. Earth remains the test case for understanding how cold brine self-organizes beneath floating ice. Freezing acts efficiently.
Improved field sensors could capture the internal conditions of growing brinicles in real time. Salinity shapes exchange below. Simultaneous measurements would connect tube geometry with the invisible brine plume producing it. Transport steadily connects flow below.
Broader surveys could reveal how common brinicles are and which sea ice conditions favor their growth during ice.
Combining environmental maps may eventually allow researchers to predict where brinicles should form. Gravity steadily guides geometry below. Climate-driven changes to sea ice growth could alter brine rejection, though local brinicle responses remain uncertain. Brinicles illustrate local physics, but also belong to the broader desalination process occurring throughout growing sea ice.
Each stage is understandable alone, yet together they build one of the ocean's strangest self-organized structures.
A brinicle grows downward because dense liquid falls first, while freezing seawater constructs a hollow chimney around it.
This seabird can sleep while remaining airborne above the open ocean. Long flights inspired a question that behavior alone could not answer. Researchers studied breeding female great frigate birds from a Galapagos colony. A lightweight recorder was attached before each bird returned to flight.
Electrodes measured electrical activity from both brain hemispheres.
An accelerometer recorded head motion and turning forces.
A separate GPS unit tracked position and altitude.
Together, the instruments linked brain state with real flight behavior.
Some recorded journeys covered thousands of kilometers without landing. The longest sleep recordings followed birds aloft for about 10 days. Over deep water, the birds had nowhere safe to perch.
Frigate birds avoid prolonged contact with the ocean surface.
Their plumage is less waterproof than that of many seabirds.
Getting airborne after becoming soaked would be difficult. Low wing loading makes sustained soaring unusually efficient.
A deeply forked tail provides precise aerial control. Atmospheric updrafts supply altitude without constant flapping. Circling converts rising air into height. Stored altitude then powers long descending glides.
Soaring reduces the muscular cost of staying airborne.
Direct brain recordings finally revealed whether flight contained genuine sleep. Sometimes one hemisphere entered slow-wave sleep while the other remained more awake.
Bird vision is strongly crossed between eye and opposite hemisphere.
The awake hemisphere could monitor visual information from the open eye. During asymmetric sleep, the open eye often faced the direction of turning. Visual monitoring may help avoid collisions inside crowded rising air. Half-brain sleep preserved some vigilance during flight. Unihemispheric sleep also helps other birds monitor danger on land. In frigate birds, vigilance appears linked to navigation and nearby traffic.
The hemispheres can differ in sleep depth, rather than switching completely.
Sleep exists along a continuum of hemispheric asymmetry. Frigate birds also slept with both hemispheres simultaneously. Bihemispheric sleep showed that one awake hemisphere was not always required.
Aerodynamic stability can persist through short bouts of whole brain sleep.
Updrafts reduce the need for active altitude control.
Most flight sleep occurred while birds circled in rising air.
Light provides time before a sleeping bird approaches the water.
Birds generally remained awake near the ocean surface. Foraging demands favored wakefulness during daylight. During flight, that half-brain sleep allowed rest without surrendering all visual attention. Eye state matched the turning direction during many asymmetric sleep bouts. Either hemisphere could become the deeper sleeping side. Sleep arrived in short fragments rather than long, continuous periods. Typical flight sleep bouts lasted only around 12 seconds. The longest uninterrupted episode remained under 6 minutes. Dozens of brief naps accumulated across darkness.
Sleep occupied only a small fraction of time aloft.
Record birds slept during less than 3% of flight.
Daily flight sleep averaged less than 1 hour.
Ecological demands kept the birds awake most of each day and night.
Frigate birds track ocean features associated with future feeding opportunities.
Following changing ocean patterns may require sustained attention.
Large predators can push prey toward the surface. Frigate birds capture food while remaining airborne.
They sometimes harass other seabirds for food.
Kleptoparasitism provides another aerial feeding strategy.
Efficient feeding must support days of continuous movement. Aerodynamics minimize the cost of remaining aloft. Night flight involved even less flapping than daytime travel.
Despite sleeping in flight, the birds obtained remarkably little sleep.
Land sleep exceeded flight sleep by more than an order of magnitude. Back at the colony, sleep became longer and deeper. Land allowed more continuous slow-wave sleep.
Flight sleep was generally lighter than land sleep.
A secure surface removed the need for aerodynamic control.
The recorded females were returning to chicks between foraging trips.
Parental demand made long foraging journeys necessary.
Food resources could lie thousands of kilometers away.
Returning to land created an opportunity for extended sleep.
Researchers still debate how completely land sleep repays losses from flight. Available recordings do not capture every transition between sea and land. Longer studies could measure cumulative sleep recovery. New biologgers may reveal how sleep changes during longer flights.
Tracking studies show longer airborne journeys than current brain recordings cover.
Continuous flight does not automatically prove continuous in-flight sleep. Brain activity is required to identify sleep reliably. EEG distinguishes the major avian brain states.
Rare flight bouts included rapid eye movement sleep.
Brief REM did not visibly disrupt the recorded trajectory. Avian REM episodes can last only seconds. Reduced muscle tone was brief enough for flight to continue. Atmospheric support may buffer momentary reductions in active control. Several safeguards overlap during these rare episodes.
REM sleep ended rapidly.
Most sleep aloft consisted of slow-wave sleep. Both asymmetric and symmetric patterns occurred.
Sleep strongly favored circling flight.
Tension remained highest near potential feeding zones. Birds often gained height before sleeping.
Flight sleep combined several strategies rather than one simple autopilot. Altitude reduced immediate danger from descent.
Thermals supplied passive support.
Unihemispheric sleep preserved directional awareness. Brief naps limited exposure to reduced attention.
Together, these features made sleep aloft possible.
Human responses cannot be inferred directly from a seabird. How frigate birds function on so little sleep remains unresolved.
Several physiological explanations are still under investigation.
Sleep may be regulated more locally than whole brain labels suggest.
On land, the bird finally gains a stable place to rest. Both hemispheres can enter deeper sleep. Daily sleep rises to more than 12 hours. Slow wave activity becomes stronger. Adhika.
Sleep episodes become more continuous. REM sleep also occurs safely on land.
Resting conditions permit fuller sleep architecture.
Land sleep likely contributes to recovery.